First topic we have tonight is Florida gun store sets up a Muslim-free zone after Chattanooga shooting. Here we go, guys.
After last week's shooting that left 5 servicemen dead in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Florida Gun Supply is responding by setting up a so-called Muslim-free zone. Take a look at this.
Now, I have a moral and legal responsibility to ensure the safety of all patriots in my community. And so, effective immediately, I'm declaring Florida Gun Supply as a Muslim-free zone. I will not arm and train those who wish to do harm to my fellow patriots.
Located in Inverness, the gun store will refuse to sell to any Muslims that they deem sketchy. Now, as a result, the Council on Islamic Relations is firing back. Joining me now for more is from CAIR is Hassan Shibli, the Executive Director of the Florida chapter. Hassan, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So what is it the CAIR is doing in response to this so-called Muslim-free zone that's being instituted in this store?
Okay. Well, we've asked the Department of Justice to investigate and look into whether this violates any federal or even state and local laws. As you know, Florida has a horrible history, and the South, in fact, our nation as a whole has a horrible history of discriminating against people on an institutional level, especially as you talk about the African-American community in Florida, where they had to go to separate schools, separate bathrooms, separate restaurants. And then you had a period in history when the Irish, there were signs Irish need not apply, or Jews were not welcome. And this is the same kind of hatred now the American Muslim community is facing that other communities have faced before and continue to face. There is no room for discrimination. What makes America so great is that people are free to practice their religion without fear of harassment or intimidation. And we want to make sure America remains a free nation for all people. So we're investigating this to make sure that that kind of discriminatory treatment is not tolerated in our society.
Now, would there be some kind of legal argument that this store could use to try to deny people service?
It heavily depends on what the state, local, and federal laws apply. There are very clear federal laws that prohibit certain businesses from discriminating against people based on certain protected classes. So right now we're in the early stages of investigating to see what the law is and make sure that that store is being held to the law.
Now, originally there also was a post from a store in New Hampshire that said they were also going to set up a Muslim-free zone, but that post has since been removed. Do you have any update on what was going on there?
I'm not sure about the details of that store, but what's really troubling me is the utter hypocrisy of these gun store owners. Did they take any action after Charleston when 9 African-American church members, including a state senator, were murdered in cold blood by white supremacists who hated them because of the color of their skin and used guns to commit that horrible murder? They didn't take any action at all. So why is it that only now they're taking an anti-Muslim stance when even the Department of Homeland Security has shown that exponentially higher number of people have been murdered by white supremacists in this country? And in fact, since 9/11, about 50 Americans have been killed by terrorists who called themselves Muslims in this country. However, in that same time period, over 200,000 people have been killed by guns in this country, and over 200 people killed by white supremacists. So they're not even really tackling where the real threat is coming from, and they're very hypocritical in their anti-Muslim biases.
I just want to bring up a comment from one of our viewers, Justice Holmes, regarding the video of the guy from the story. Says, and he said that in front of a Confederate flag. Overall, though, what would you say has been the development within this country since 9/11 of the way that we react to attacks, such as what happened in Chattanooga? At a certain point, it certainly seemed like Islamophobia was running very high in the country, but do you think that now things are starting to change and turn around?
Well, there is unfortunately a double standard, and that is whenever a deranged criminal does something horrible and he happens to be a member of the Muslim community, many like to blame the entire Muslim faith and the entire Muslim community for his horrible actions. But when a white supremacist does the same thing, or a Jewish extremist, a Christian extremist, or even an atheist does such a crime, it certainly doesn't reflect on their whole communities, nor should it. Surprisingly, however, Islamophobia is higher today than it was right after 9/11. According to some studies after 9/11, about 40% of Americans had a negative image of Islam on the day following 9/11, whereas in 2010 it was over 50%, and that's heavily due in part to the Islamophobia industry, where people like Pamela Geller, Robert Spencer, and others are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars, in fact, according to CAIR's latest study, over $160 million to demonize Islam and Muslims in this country, and frankly attempt to outlaw Islam. In Tennessee not too long ago, they tried to pass a law that would prohibit the practice of Islam and make it punishable by 20 years in jail. And these concern us not as Muslims, but it concerns us as Americans because it's un-American. It offends the First Amendment, it offends the U.S. Constitution, and it makes us less safe and less free. It makes us less safe because you miss the majority of threats that have nothing to do with the Muslim community. It makes us less free because it undermines the First Amendment, and that's why as Americans we stand against these kinds of discriminatory laws and policies.
All right, Hassan, thank you for joining us today. We'll be sure to keep following.
So there you have it. What this guy doesn't do is per capita, how many Muslims live here in the United States versus...
Right, it's less than 1% of Muslims live in the United States.
So,
but I mean, I thought the...
And it'd be point 4 is the Muslim men in the country causing it, so...
Yeah, but I thought, like the guy, like the gun manufacturer was like full of shit till I heard that last bit. But still, I mean... one of the things that the guy mentioned in the very beginning is he's doing all this because he feels he has a moral obligation to keep like all the people in his community safe. But I'm wondering, like, you're a dude, you sell guns, and I'm sure he doesn't really give a shit when people are coming in there to buy guns. Like, and also, how does he know that they're Muslims? Do they have to come in like wearing
We can speculate forever about the real reason behind it, but it's clear that he just doesn't like Islam or Muslims, and he's probably just justifying it after the fact with this current event that happened on the military base.
Correct, and he actually did state in a video, there's actually an official video he has on his website where he actually does say, he used a Confederate flag and quote, Muslim-free gun store, gun zone, to controversy. He was going after some kind of controversy, and he got it, of course. There's no doubt that he got it. Listen, I think, when you look at the statistics, and the statistic I got here is, this was a report a couple years ago, more Americans have killed by white supremacists than Muslim extremists since 9/11. Including 9/11, it's a whole different story, of course, but when you look at it, like I said, percentage of population of each demographic, it's definitely different, man. You can tell that when you look at 48 people killed by white terrorists compared to 26 radical Islamists, it's a whole different story when you look at the percentage and per capita. It's a whole different story.
Yeah, I personally took away from it how ironic it is that they're so like pro Second Amendment, but then so quick to like deny someone else that right. And not only that, but I mean, what do you think is going to happen? That the Muslim won't be able to get a gun because your store decided not to like it? This is America. You could buy a fucking gun like on every other street corner. To be quite honest, I mean, I live in a small town and we have like 4 or 5 gun shops. It's like there's
a fair point,
Well,
there's
I'm
plenty
Canadian.
of fucking Go ahead.
I'm Canadian, so I'm not as familiar with your rules and your amendments and everything. But so allow me to play devil's advocate here, so I can better understand the position.
Sure.
The First Amendment is the most important one, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's a
yes.
I guess that's subjective, but
so
I would say.
If this business owner is a private business owner, he's not part of a corporation, is he not, as an individual, as a private citizen who owns a business, covered by the First Amendment through his religious freedoms to not do something that goes against his religion?
But see, then you could say that places don't have to, churches don't have to marry gay couples, or you don't have to make them a wedding cake. What I think what disturbs me most about
actually the churches, you can't force churches to do that anyway.
Well, what I'm saying is I think it's, if they really wanted to be, they could be bigoted without being so brazen about it and being like, here's me being bigoted. Like you could just say, if you were a gay cake place that didn't want to make a gay couple a cake, just be like, well, I'm really sorry, we just have a lot of orders and we just had a couple of people quit. You could tell them any reason, but instead you just be like, look, we really like you, but you're gay, so that's why we're turning down your business. That's what I can't stand, that brazen bigotry, like that out there in your face shit. And they think they're doing like the Lord's work or some shit. Like this guy probably, is a big Jesus Christ follower, and that's why AK-47s are awesome. Like they don't have, I don't know, logical follow through in a lot of cases.
That, but
I don't know about the connection there, I mean. but I definitely think he's bigoted towards Muslims and Islam. I mean, there's a justification towards having a skepticism and having a fear of radical Islam. It's justified. Most of the terrorist attacks around the globe are conducted by Muslims. not all Muslims are bad. You have to couch that every fucking time, of course, and then you have these people coming on spouting the stupid shit like he did, saying, the right wing terror and the white supremacist terror has killed a lot more people than Muslims ever. Okay, but you're looking at per capita. You have a very, very small percentage of the population causing all these problems compared to a huge portion of the population over a small, over how many year period, right?
Yeah.
And you have, but it's like, okay, each time they come on, they repeat the same thing. Oh, people are just being Islamophobic. Oh, people are just having an irrational fear. It's not an irrational fear when you turn on the fucking news or you look online and all you see is fucking bombing here, shooting there, suicide bombing here, beheading here, throw gays off buildings there. It's okay. There's a fucking reason why people have their feelings against the religion as a whole.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's say that in a Muslim country, all they fucking get on their news and in their newspaper is about how America's like doing all kinds of shitty stuff here and there, and like they're just pointing out all America's flaws. Of course, then those Muslim people would learn to hate America and all Americans. They're going to judge all Americans by these news stories. It's one of those.
We're not judging all Muslim. Well, I'm not, but that guy is. Yeah, that's stupid. But at the same time, you have to judge the religion. Trying to say that the religion is somehow not responsible is not at all accurate.
Yeah, but I see that is I totally agree with you there, Paul. I see that as being kind of a side issue to the topic, though. The topic is more focused on whether this guy would have, like Armoured Skeptic was saying, would he have a legal right to do that? And I would think he wouldn't have the legal right to do that for the same reason that, they like the gay cake thing, for the same reasons of that. And if there is some kind of loophole that he would have, I would like to know it. Like what?
Yeah, I think if a Muslim guy came into his gun store and said, hey, listen, I want to buy a gun, and they did a background check, he was all good, but, they didn't want to sell him the gun because, they had this so-called, which I don't like the term, Islamophobia, and he just doesn't want to give the guy a gun because that, and he specifically tells him, I don't agree with your faith, I don't agree with Islam, this and that, so I'm not selling you a gun because you could do harm with it. You're probably a terrorist. Like, if that guy did something like we're going to cover, like the next story, Sweet Cakes, if they did that, this guy might have a lawsuit here. You know what I mean?
Well, the guy that actually shot up the military base, if he had a background check done, they would have found that his father was on the watch list, right? At one point, would that have disqualified him for getting a gun?
Probably, because what happens
should have definitely went up.
Yeah, what happened? The background check failed. That's what they're claiming now.
Oh.
That's what they're claiming now. I'm like, there's stories out there now that I guess the federal FBI claims.
Not that it should have not that it really matters. He could have just gone to a gun show and there would have been no background check because that's the loophole here in America. Just go to a gun show and they'll sell you anything for cash.
Not a loophole, but okay.
Well, you know what I mean. There's no regulating like, he didn't pass a background check. That's the reason he can get a gun. No, Listen, he can get a gun any fucking time he wants. Just go to a fucking gun show. Doesn't have to pass any kind of background check. Doesn't have to worry about failing one.
Well, gun show you can get on the street too, but
he's not being. He's not talking specific about where.
You're talking about private transactions where it's one from one personal owner to another, not from a licensed dealer to a private citizen. That's a completely different scenario.
Okay, well, in any case, he's got the fucking gun in either scenario, right? And then he does the crime in either scenario. So, I don't know. It's a valid point that, like, the background check really means dick, because if they turned him down, he could have still gone and got a gun somehow easily.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I really don't want to get into the whole gun control debacle, anti-gun, pro-gun, whatever, but, I feel there should be an issue where there should be something to implement, which there is, where, you get cash for guns, offer more money. The government could, really, get those guns off the street, and responsible gun owners should be able to get guns. As long as there's no loopholes, which there are, I believe, in my viewpoint, for people to get guns. There is. One thing I do want to say here is, I want to really hit on the TYT. TYT is famous for ranting and bashing on right-wing murderers like, Dylan Roof, and somehow to compare that shit to Islamic attacks. I mean, like, there's no comparison when you come down to it, like you guys said. I mean, like, the terrorists in this world, I mean, like, it's all Islamic to a certain point. In 2012, U.S. government data, there was 13,000 people who died in terrorist attack around the world. In 2010, only 15 were private U.S. citizens. Of the 30,000 wounded, 90 were U.S. citizens. Now, what I want to say here is, There is an issue with Islam. There's no doubt. We're not going to disagree, hopefully, on that perspective. There is definitely an issue there. And I see this gun owner feeding off the media, because the media does blow it out to a certain point, like Fox News. They do blow it out of perspective. There are good Muslims. Now, when something like the Boston bombing happened, there was Muslims on the street just getting attacked and beaten up because they were Muslim. That's wrong. You just don't do anything like that. And it doesn't look good. So, I mean, like, when you want to compare Dylan Roof to Islamic attacks or Islam,
get the fuck out.
Jihadist, you can't compare it. You can't compare. Is it wrong? Yeah, all of it's wrong. All terrorism is wrong. It doesn't matter domestic or foreign. It doesn't matter. It's all wrong.
Yeah, but, and I, sorry.
Go, you're good.
I apologize for, I mean, I straying away from a bit of what's going on here. Yeah, I don't think the owner should be able to discriminate because of religion, obviously. I mean, I don't think he should be able to say, well, I'm not going to sell to Muslims because I believe they're going to cause problems. If you legitimately think someone's going to cause harm to another person, then yeah, sure, don't sell them the firearm. But if you're basing that on their religion solely, then that is wrong. At the same time, you have to recognize that as a whole, the religion of Islam and its adherents are more violent than other religions.
A lot more violent than other religions.
I'm curious if that answers skeptics.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is from my perspective, what I would want if I owned a private business is I'd want to be able to refuse business to anybody for any reason, because I don't want there to be some sort of law saying I have to sell something or make something to somebody that I don't like. But that doesn't mean, though, that you can use your bigotry as an excuse.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah. That's exactly what I was getting at with that. Like, you can do it, just don't be like, well, it's because you're gay. Just be like, find any other reason.
Come up with an excuse.
Exactly. Thank you.
And you can do that. And people like Sweet Cakes, and maybe this gun owner might happen to him, is there's laws, discrimination laws here in the United States that protect certain demographics from being discriminated against. And the next story we're going to get to here in a few minutes is a prime example of that.
Right, but when you stand in front of a Confederate flag and say, I hate Muslims and I'm not going to sell them guns anymore.
It's pretty bad.
It's just, you're being too one-dimensional about your reason as to why you're not going to sell to these people. And unfortunately, you're just going to come across as a bigot, and you are going to be treated like a bigot at that point.
Right.
Correct.
That brush is a bit broad, sir.
And rightfully so, you know what I mean? So... And it's just amazing the people that back this guy up, man. Like, this is just such a big issue here in the United States. Not recently, but probably in the last 5-10 years. Well, probably all time, but last 5-10 years, it's really bad, especially with the, same-sex marriage and stuff like that. It's just amazing the bigotry that's coming out, and people like Fox News supporting such bigotry. I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? But hey,
well, I support his as a business owner, his right to not sell to anyone he doesn't want to, of course. However, he should, like the other people, he should be not so open with his discrimination, because
people are going to be watching
not because people shouldn't be able to voice their opinions, but because you're just inviting yourself in for fucking trouble if you're doing that shit. You're willingly, knowingly inviting trouble.
Correct. Yep, and it's going to come. It's probably not going to be the last we're going to see of this guy, to be honest with you. Something's going to happen where somebody's going to try so much.
The next Joe the plumber.
Yeah, the next Joe.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's a good one.
Damn it! Even the Canadians know about Joe the plumber.
That's some of that little dry Canadian humor. Awesome.
He's baldered in dark matter.